gentlemen, children of all ages, I give you Waylon Lewis! Come on out here! I want to say a few things about this good man before we let him on the stage. He is a professional Irish jig dancer. No, he's not. But I guarantee you he's going commando right now.
Yeah, no one did ask us to do this. We did a pretty fun one with New Era 2 years ago. Actually, they really did all the work. And then 4 years ago, we did a fun one that, you know, kind of like this, where we just showed up with an awesome partner. So I want to give a shout out to Jennifer and her Sisters of Shine for hosting this tonight. But the main everyone can hear me okay, right? The main inspiration behind tonight, kind of like Ryan said, is I have a lot of friends, unfortunately most of whom aren't here tonight, who love Boulder, but don't really care or know much about what makes Boulder Boulder. You know, they kind of enjoy the fruits of Boulder. They go to the cafes and the bars and the restaurants and bike around and whatever, and maybe they have an issue or two they care about, but they don't know their council members. There's a real disconnect, I feel like. I might be the only one who feels like this, but I'm hoping there are others who also want to bridge that divide between our governance and the incredibly boring hall where city council meets and you know, the bars and the restaurants and the bike paths of Boulder. So that's our goal tonight. The videos are getting pretty good play, and this video will be up. Our goal, I think, is like, where's Travis? Friday. Friday? Okay, so Travis is promising Thursday, which is amazing because it already is Thursday. So, or no, it's Wednesday. Let's say Thursday. So we're gonna get it up, and if you feel like sharing it with your friends, help them, as Meg called this event, decide your vote in an intelligent and caring way, because that's what has made Boulder so popular and on so many you know, best places to do whatever list. Not what you're thinking of right now, Ryan.
That's at Burning Man.
Yeah, that's Black Rock City, not Boulder. All right, so what's my job now? To introduce people? Okay. I'm just the looks, not the brains. Actually, I'm not either. Why am I here? So, do I introduce them one by one? Or would we do the fun thing first? All right, so fun thing. City Council Candidates!
Yeah!
Come on down!
Yeah!
Father of two, brought the USA Pro Cycling Tour to Boulder. Making Cove, famous eco-warrior and longtime councilman. We need to turn that up. John Gerstel, ladies, quiet down. He's a Boulder native and lifelong conservationist. Micah Parkin. She's and I'm quoting from what's written here, she's a badass activist and mother. All right, Mary Young, bicycle commuter, just here for bicycles, an advocate for the elderly. Thank you, Mary. Jonathan Diggs, he is committed to helping all people in Boulder, and he holds a PhD in statistics. That's hardcore stuff. Jonathan. Sam Weaver, ladies, quiet. Local businessman and environmentalist. Thank you, Sam. Ed Byrne, he's a Wally crazy guy. He's a former assistant, wow. Awkward moment in the bar. I love you. Former assistant city attorney and dance professional. Yeah. Served on almost every committee in Boulder. And then Kevin Tailing doesn't get any music. That's because he's libertarian. Libertarians, boo, no music. He's the youngest, oh, there we go. He's the youngest person run for Boulder City Council 6 times in a row over the last 25 years. And he's just a guy who believes in common sense. Yeah. His common sense, not yours. All right, well, thank you so much. That was a ridiculous introduction. Please have a seat. Yeah.
Musical chairs.
If you have to sit on, I think we're missing Matt Applebaum, the mayor. He did RSVP, but
good, 'cause there's
he's got a
no
busy
chair.
social life.
He wouldn't have fit anyway.
So now, I just jump in? Sorry. You're supposed to whisper things in my ear. No, I got it, I'm fine. Do I just go for it? All right. Now
Aren't you
Waylon
the
asks
one in
what
charge?
happens.
You are the one in charge, right?
No.
No one's in charge.
I'm no fool. I need to stand on my X. So, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. This is a funny debate. It's fun, but it's also serious. We are going to try and help the people in the audience and on video with Walk the Talk Show and elephantjournal.com figure out the differences between all of you. A lot of my friends always say, well, Boulder City Council, they're all great. They're all good looking. I don't know how to decide. So I just vote alphabetically for the first, 5 openings. So some of you are in luck, some of you aren't. Under that logic, we're going to try and do a little bit better. So I'm going to start with a few random issues, and then we have a bunch of VIP community leaders who are going to ask their favorite pet issue. And as you know, people in Boulder obsess over their issues, so they have all spent weeks and have, 20 minutes each to ask their question. They don't actually even really care about the answer. They just want to hear themselves talk. That's the Boulder question for you. No, seriously, they're amazing people in this audience, so thank you for coming. So the first one is one of my pet issues. I won't ask about it very long, but I will ask just for fun, and feel free to lie, but we will point out, we'll project on the screen behind if you are lying or not. How did all of you get to the debate here tonight? Why don't we just go from your end? Kevin.
Bicycle, I don't know.
Yeah!
Prius. Bicycle, all right. What kind of car? That's an LA question. I'm kidding, you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. Mary.
Walked.
All right.
Bicycle.
All right.
I was bad and did drive, but it's in line for getting to become a plug-in,
All right.
if that helps.
That does help.
Bicycle.
All right.
Feet. Walked.
All right. Not bad. So that's one of the things we love about Boulder is it is walkable, bikeable, busable, and Pius, the Toyota Pius. I think it's pronounced. So one of the things Elephant focuses on a lot is what we call the mindful life. And a big part of that is obviously, commuting has been shown, commuting by car, to be horrible for your health, for stress. Obviously, it's horrible for climate change. It's bad for family, longevity in terms of relationships. It's not a super happy thing for anyone except for Sounds True, audio companies who want you to listen to stuff in your car on your commute. So how are we going to get more people on bicycles in Boulder? Is the answer bicycle lanes? What is the answer? And what would you do about it? So maybe just the first 5 of you who want to jump in.
Jump in. Normally my family does bike and walk nearly everywhere, but I will say having young kids, it's pretty scary sometimes to be riding and looking back at my little ones, and there's a line about that wide separating them from cars whizzing by. So I think that it would be great to do one of the things that Community Cycles recommends, which is to have separated bike lanes as often as we can, so that separated bike lanes have some sort of barrier between the cyclists and the cars, and so that can add an extra layer of protection. I think honestly that would help a lot of families and a lot of maybe elderly people who are nervous about cycling to get back on their bikes.
Is there anyone here who doesn't feel like separated bike lanes is a priority? No, serious question. It's not a priority because of a good reason that you'd like to talk about. No? Okay, it's Boulder. Anyone else? Ed?
Well, I think you should have at least one day a year that's bicycle only. Yeah.
All right.
And you can have the buses running.
Right. But no walking.
That would be a great thing. You could jog. You can run.
Right. Right. But you can't hide. Sam.
Rollerblade.
So once we've got the bike lanes that have been suggested in a really good commute system, a forward-thinking thing to think about is, do you charge for private parking? Do we want a vehicle miles traveled tax? Is there some way that we make it less easy to be in a car, not by congesting our roads, but by making an economic incentive that gives people a reason to be in a bus or a bike because it's a thing to do for the pocketbook?
So jumping off from there, one question or concern I hear from small business owners already downtown is that, the city is always making it more difficult for people to park downtown. So how do you keep that kind of a happy balance and protect business interests? Because we have a lot of great small businesses. Kevin?
I didn't know if it was to me or...
No, we're just going to jump around. It won't make any sense.
So unfortunately, we often have decreasing options in Boulder, and I actually have a way that we can increase options and get that financial incentive by promoting car sharing. And Philadelphia has transferred a portion of their city fleet to car share. It saves them money, it's good for the environment, and it's actually a social issue as well because it gives people access to cars that they otherwise wouldn't have. So the reason that creates a financial incentive is in car sharing, you have to make the decision every single day whether you're going to pay to drive or bike for free. As opposed to buying a car up front, you pay all at once and then you don't have to make that choice.
Mary, and you are a daily bicycle commuter, so
I am.
maybe you could be the last
I am.
one on the bicycle issue.
How many of y'all have seen the bike corral in front of the Cup?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And Trident.
So, for those worried about businesses not having enough business, every time I go by there, there's that corral is full, and it's 8 bikes to 1 car. So, you got 8 times more business.
Yeah, at least. Okay, so moving on from bicycles, which is what I'm passionate about. I know we've had some interesting developments in Boulder in the last year. We've, from obviously the controversies around GMOs on public open space, to fracking, which everyone loves to hate and then goes home and uses their natural gas for pasta or whatever. And then we also have a Walmart, finally, in Boulder. So, so what the hell is going on with Boulder? And how are you going to address GMOs, fracking, and if you want to talk about big box stores or the business community generally, please do. Andrew?
Well, this is one, GMOs and fracking have no place in Boulder in part because we have no room for these things. That's part of the issue in terms of we have 25 square miles. And so how are you going to frack in Boulder? We've got a moratorium in effect. It should stay in effect. And the same, with GMOs. There's no type of growing that you would have to generate the GMO issue. It is a problem in the county with the sugar beets, as I understand it. It's hard to even get seeds that aren't GMO seeds, and that's something that's got to be addressed on a higher level.
Macon, do you want to jump in on that? You've been on council.
Well, I think GMOs they hijack the biological patrimony of the planet, and it's really a terrible thing for evolution to have this going on. I think fracking is bad because of not only does it put our air and water at risk, but also fracking. If the wells lose more than 2% of their overall production and fugitive emissions to methane, it's actually worse than coal. It's not better than coal.
I love it. I feel like I just entered West Wing. Lots of stats and knowledge washing over me. Okay. What else should we touch on that VIP question askers won't touch on? Maybe Jonathan. What about the arts? I have a lot of friends over the years who have moved here, tried to do something in whatever theater, whatever sort of arts, and haven't found enough support. I know there's amazing arts like BMOCA and open arts, different communities here in Boulder, but what would you do about the arts community to try and support them and perhaps social issues that you feel like aren't getting enough attention?
Well, so in thinking about the arts, I think the one way to be looking at this is in terms of providing opportunities for funding, and I guess it's helping to use the facilities that we have. Boulder owns the dairy, which was at one time just exactly that. And I think we've put money towards building some kind of infrastructure to have it for the arts. I am partial from my work on the Human Relations Commission to funding arts type activities to engage folks. I guess the challenge that people who are making their living doing arts will have is that there are a lot of nonprofits who are providing services of various kinds, providing opportunities to do dancing on the plaza for instance, that people trying to make their living doing arts are competing with.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Maybe someone who hasn't spoken yet? Is that John? Have we not heard from John? John Gerstle.
Well, I think that the arts and culture scene in Boulder is one of the main drivers of the desirability of our town. And the single thing that I would like to see happen that would promote those would be development of a cultural and performance center downtown as part of the master plan that's being developed now. One of the issues there is trying to get all of the potential users of such a center to work together. And it should be, for example, a combined conference center and performance and gallery building. But I know that the university and the Chamber of Commerce and the downtown folks and the art community have a hard time sort of agreeing that it should be combined in a single facility, and for reasons that I'm still not clear about. But I think having a facility like that with a performance center that could carry about maybe 1,000 people in its audience would fill a real hole in our town that would really help us.
Thank you, John. Mary?
So the arts currently provides 524 full-time jobs. We have the 8th highest per capita of artists in this city behind Los Angeles, California, and New York. So what we need to do is recognize all these folks, all these artists among us. And we're about to lose some of our cheapest, most affordable art spaces up in North Boulder because of annexation. So as part of that annexation, I would propose that we provide affordable artist spaces.
Thank you. That word affordable is always popular in Boulder. It's endangered species. Let's move on. We're going to get me out of here and get the VIP question askers in pretty soon. So final round or two is, what is one thing, this is a question I put in here because I'm always reading all day and blogging all day, and there's a lot of creative, exciting things that we see other cities doing, whether it's Seattle or Portland or one of the other hipster-approved cities. What is one thing you have seen another city do that you would like to try in Boulder? Andrew.
Yep. I've been talking to the Denver Theater District, and they've been doing this. They're heading up to San Diego and I think Portland to do this as well. And that is an LED screen on the hill. It's not
on the first Flatiron?
On the first Flatiron would be fantastic. We could
That's
project.
Awesome.
You could project. But this is something actually, and we've talked to people about it, we wouldn't do it to the scale, but it's an idea. The students love the idea. The students would learn how to program this and use it in ways we don't even know how to use it. But you could show video shorts. Instead of people sitting in their rooms, in their houses, watching the Tour de France and other things, they're going to come out, they're going to watch it in town. It becomes a draw. You get foot traffic up there, and we can generate 6 figures a year of funds, which we don't have right now, on the Hill to clean it up and generate more programming to bring foot traffic up there. So it's an idea, it's something to talk about, and CU could use it for marketing purposes as well.
I love it. As a Hill resident, I love it. Anyone else?
I think we should do what I think San Francisco must have done by now. Make it a crime to take yourself too seriously. And
actually, San
impose it
Francisco
on
has
council.
rejected that. They're big fans of taking themselves seriously.
So I want to second Andrew's idea because I want to see the Big Lebowski on the first Flatiron. So that's what I'm after.
Totally.
Seattle just started a program. They have a municipal utility, and they have a building there that's LEED Platinum. And so they baselined what the building would be if it went to the standard code, and then it went way beyond it. And the utility's actually paying them for efficiency as a resource. So it's really neat, and I think that's something that we should look at here, especially if we either get Excel to come to the table or form our own municipal utility.
Maybe we could send Excel to Seattle. It seems like
They're really asking for it up there.
Yeah. All right. That was an editorial comment that was inappropriate, and I don't withdraw it. Anyone else?
Jump in. One thing that several cities have done around the nation, Asheville, North Carolina has done it, and now Seattle is about to do it, which is to create food forests in parks. I'm a really big proponent of healthy, organic, local food. Yay! And so in these other cities, in parks, in areas that are being underutilized, they've actually developed edible landscapes. And so, raspberry bushes and fruit trees and nut trees and edible gardens. And right now, we work with Bridge House on their Ready to Work program and to maintain the Pearl Street Mall and also some of our parks. And so I've talked a little bit with Isabel McDevitt about how cool it would be to have more Ready to Work program jobs for our homeless who are ready to transition into work, maintaining some of these parks and then using some of that food to actually feed the hungry at their new kitchen that they just got. So anyway, I think there's a lot of really cool synergies there.
That's exciting. Thank you. That's actually the idea in Seattle that made me think of that question. It was just so inspiring reading. It was Seattle, right? With their huge edible park. Yeah. Anyone else on that one? It's a fun one.
I've been a proponent for the last 5 years of 1% for the arts, and what that means is that all the city projects that we undertake, which can be on the order of $25 to $40 million a year, that 1% of that would be devoted to the arts. That is, there would be a public art program, and it would help fund some of the artists that we were speaking of earlier, really become a way of cultivating, of nurturing the arts in the community.
Love it. Yeah, I love all those ideas. Like Ryan, I grew up here in Boulder, and my mom, my entire real arts education, cultural education was public. It was thanks to the library and their films and all that. So it means a lot. And then final question from me. Do you want the hippie question or do you want a practical question?
The hippie.
All right, hippie. Elephant Journal, this is from Meg, so you can give her the credit or the blame. Elephant Journal is about living a mindful life. What do you think it means to be a mindful leader or an authentic leader? Anyone who hasn't talked much? Kevin?
I'll jump in on that one.
I think you've talked a lot. No, I'm kidding.
I had an economics professor in freshman year of college at University of Puget Sound, and we were talking about morality, and his definition was live in such a way that if all were to follow, all would be well. And so I aspire to do that. That's why I moved here and got rid of my car, and that's why I live in an efficiency apartment, that I believe that if people followed my lead, that we would have a much more robust environment and economy.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And thank you for running and, being youthful.
I think the best description I've seen of leadership came from Nelson Mandela. He talked about when he was a young boy, he'd use a long-tailed whip. And he knew where the sheep were supposed to go, but he would find the sheep heading in that direction. He would use the long whip to reach out and bring attention to those sheep, and the rest would follow.
So you're referring to the environmental community as the sheep?
Leading from behind.
No. Just kidding.
People doing the right thing.
Just trying to create trouble. Okay, Mary?
This afternoon, I saw a really interesting blog post. I think it was the New York Times blog post. It was a series of about 36 eyes, and you had to look in the eyes and guess what mood they were feeling, and the higher score, the better you were at identifying with people. I scored 28 out of I think it was 32, 28 out of 32. And I think that to be a better leader, I would need to be able to make a perfect score. And so I'll aspire to that.
So my idea of the mindful leader is the servant leader, the servant leadership that comes out of actually the novel that Hermann Hesse wrote, Journey to the East. And it's about how the person that was the servant and really waiting on the rest of the group ended up being the leader that finally brought coherence to the destination and to the journey. So it carries with it the idea that the direct relationship between the leader and the people that he's leading is very, very important, and it's one to be cherished and cultivated.
My idea of the mindful leader is one who puts him or herself in the shoes of another and of the person who you're looking at. And I'd really like to put myself in Macon's boots.
Well, you two should connect after the show. That is like Boulder's boots going on right here. We got Birkenstocks and cowboy boots. I like it. Anyone else? Oh, Jonathan.
So for the my mindful leader, I would want the emphasis to be in policy thinking around people. I believe we should have a vision of Boulder as a place where we care about and take care of each other, at least as well as we take care of the environment. I don't think we're there yet. I think we have some basic aspiration that way. But I think mindful in that regard will mean focusing our policies that way in our budgets.
May I go?
Yeah, please. Sorry, I have notes for the VIP question askers. I'm not checking my
No worries.
text. Later, totally. I'm doing something.
You're being mindful.
How many readers now, Waylon?
Yeah, 4.3. Micah,
Well,
please.
this is Elephant Journal. You're with Elephant Journal, and when we're mindful in yoga, we're trying to focus on the present, right? And trying not to let too many other things distract us. And I think as a leader, if we're going to be mindful, I think that's important too, is that we're listening, as others have said, that we're listening to all of the various needs in the community and trying to meet, goals that are sometimes at odds with each other, of a strong local economy, a safe environment, social justice. These are all important things. And while we're being mindful of the present, I think that a good leader is also always keeping in mind that vision of the future and thinking about what's coming down the pike and trying to be really prepared as best we can for that future. So I think it's a little of both. It's being present, but keeping that vision of the future in mind too.
Thank you.
My turn.
Go for it, John.
I worked in Bhutan for the king of Bhutan in the 1980s for 3 years. And at that time, Bhutan was an absolute monarchy.
That's an awesome beginning to an answer, by the way.
Well, it only gets better. At that time, Bhutan was an absolute monarchy. So there was just one decision maker. And he was the king, and that was the king. And he was a pretty young fellow at that time. And he was my idea of what an enlightened leader was. He pushed the country towards a constitutional monarchy, which meant that he lost his absolute power. He was not a college-educated person, but in our chats, he developed this idea of gross national happiness as an alternative to gross national product measurements, and a number of other things that sound very simple-minded, but are actually quite enlightened, I think. And so his attitudes, he certainly enjoyed his privileges of being king, but he did the right thing, and he moved ahead, and he thought of where the country should be going and how it could be happiest in the future, and that's my idea of a pretty good leader.
So would you develop a gross national happiness sort of rating for Boulder? Serious question.
Well, the problem was trying to quantify it, of course, but it's easier to quantify GNP than
As long as there's X number of cafes and yoga studios per block.
Yeah. That's a pretty good alternative, yeah.
Anyone? Yeah.
So I think an enlightened, mindful leader needs to inspire others to do what is best for the group. I was chief of the Sugarloaf Fire Department, and when you're chief of volunteers, you can't really tell them what to do. I mean, they're volunteers. If they don't like what you say, they just don't do it, or they quit, or whatever. And so the way that you lead a group of volunteers is you listen to them about how they want the organization to be, and then you inspire them with what you do when you lead, either on a scene or by going and working on the weekends on the trucks or whatever it is. So it's one thing when you're paying people and they'll do what you ask them to do, but when you lead volunteers, it's a completely different experience of leadership, and I think it's actually more interesting and challenging in some ways.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to jump first
Kind of like running a campaign, by the way.
to Michael Sandrock, who's a wonderful friend and incredibly interesting person. He's very involved in the running community, and he's been a big supporter of myself and Elephant for many years, which I appreciate, and he's a damn good writer. And you have a question.
So this is a question that's directed towards Ed and Macon, and then maybe people could jump in there. I noticed in the reading the Daily Camera, which is always accurate, which I write for.
The Colorado Daily at one time, too.
All right. So I was interested to see your response, Ed, where you, I'm just paraphrasing it, but you said the effect that it took so many years to get Boulder into this position, and it's going to take 30 years to fix it. So I was a little surprised by that because I didn't realize that Boulder was broken, and it's going to take a long time to fix it because, and this question relates to open space. So if you could just kind of address that, what you meant by what's wrong with Boulder, why is it broken, and how the open space fits in there, and what's wrong with the open space.
And also access, specifically, right?
Yes, and the access, because that's the big topic nowadays.
What's broken is not the outside of Boulder. We've actually done a pretty good job following the Plan Boulder's original notions of purchasing the open space and protecting the blue line. What we have left to do is the inside of Boulder. The fact that we have 50,000+ in commuters every day, and we have a population of 155,000 in town, says that our carbon footprint is ginormous, and we have to find ways to nibble away at that. And the best way to do it is to fix our neighborhoods. We did a sub-community plan in North Boulder, and the result has been developed in North Boulder that's moving us in a good direction. I think access to the open space is going to continue to be one of Boulder's great strengths. And I'd like to see the Rangers take more of a customer service approach rather than the beatings will continue until morale improves approach.
Okay, and I'd be interested to see what Macon says about the open space access and whoever else wants to jump in there, because there's a lot of runners that will be watching this, a lot of cyclists, as Andrew knows, that are real interested in that. Thanks.
Well, the issue of access came up in the last 4 years, particularly with mountain bikers, where we would the council permit there to be a trail on Anemone Hill just west of Boulder? And I voted in favor of that because I felt that the case had been made that access was appropriate in that place. I felt it was a way in which we could welcome some more people who love open space to use it on a daily basis. I am, right now the council is deluged by the comments and the pleas of runners to open all of, really to take down the signs and let everybody run anywhere that they want on open space against these closures. We now have about 46% of our open space trails are open, and some of them have been turned into rocky gullies as a result of the flooding. And I want to know more about this relationship between runners and open space, because it seems right now it's very rough with a lot of distrust on the part of the runners. As part of the current, I guess, management team, is being on city council, we can't establish policy. I see the job of the open space department as meeting the needs and addressing the needs and concerns of people in open space that run from absolute preservationists all the way over to people who want unfettered access everywhere on open space and who are not troubled by braided trails. I think that the open space department has a difficult job meeting the needs of all those people, and I think, in fact, they can't be met because some of the collisions are just irreconcilable. But it is my belief that open space and the professionals who run it are doing a reasonable job of balancing those interests for the majority of people in Boulder. There are always going to be people that will be unhappy with one decision or another, but we hope for the most part that we have peace on our open space and that it works for most of the people most of the time.
Are you satisfied with that, Michael?
That's great. And just overall, I mean, speaking for the running community, we really admire what you guys have done and appreciate what everyone who came before has done. And that's the reason a lot of Olympic runners come here and cyclists, as you guys know. So we're doing a great job with that. But the big question is like Macon referred to as access. Should we have more trails open, more of the open space? So if there's anyone else who wants to jump in there, just real quickly, whether you want more access or you want to limit it and protect more of the land.
Yeah, maybe one more person. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things
if someone can directly address mountain biking too, because I think that's not being addressed.
So I think rather than thinking backwards about what's come in the past, looking forwards, I think one of the opportunities for specifically mountain bikers and hikers and runners is going to be the North TSA. That's going to happen, and my understanding from Mike Patton is there's been an acquisition of the Jodra property. And one of the interesting things that's being discussed there is being able to connect up the reservoir trail system, the west side of that, all the way up to Heil Ranch with a trail which can be mountain biked. So you'd have the possibility of being able to mountain bike all the way from Boulder to Lyons and back on single track. And so that's something that I'm going to be hoping moves forward. It's something that I think open space intends to study, and it's, I think, an appropriate part of the discussion.
So thank you, Michael Sandrock. He's a great guy. So is this the order we're going in? Because my spreadsheet says otherwise. No. I'm running this. Thank you. So first we have, you can all, does anyone need to leave urgently? No. So first I have Louie Psihoyos. I'm just going to go by the spreadsheet. So Louie, we're very excited to have you here. He's the executive director of the Oceanic Preservation Society.
Is there anybody on the prospective member of the council that is for 310? Really? Okay, well...
Can you explain a little bit about what 310 is for those watching the video?
Let's have him do it.
Okay, Kevin, tell us about this fabulous 310 that we should vote for.
So I'm a tech entrepreneur. I help startups get off the ground, and I deal with new technologies every day. What I see coming down the line in the energy sector is huge, and it's going to be a movement away from poles and power lines and grid-based distribution and towards distributed production, microgrids, and things that would jeopardize our financial future if we tied it to grid-based distribution. So the alternative that I propose is investing in actual new energy technologies rather than getting caught up with a whole bunch of money stuck in poles and power lines and we still have a monopoly. Let's look at an alternative, which is that we break the monopoly, we go to a distributed productions.
But if you want to break the monopoly, why would you vote yes on 310?
Because when you substitute the Excel monopoly for the city monopoly, you don't get any change. But when you create an alternative, a third way, which is that you'd have distributed production, then you actually will get to erode Excel's power and control over the city.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you vote yes on 310, then there would be no change for a long time.
Well, no, that's the misconception. The myth is that there's this false dichotomy. In fact, we can invest in distributed production. So for $200 million...
Through Excel. So if Excel has the contract, you could do that with them.
Yes, for $200 million, we could put a $10,000 solar array on every single family home in Boulder.
But where are you going to get the $200 million, Kevin? Where are you going to get it? When we purchase a utility, we actually have a stream of income that could make that sort of investment. But you always put it as we just come up with $200 million somewhere and invest it in a solar array.
Right. There's a company called Solar City that does a program similar to this, where they will actually invest in putting the panels on top of appropriately situated roofs, and then they'll take the majority of the profits that come from those panels, but then simultaneously pay the homeowner for access to the roof. So you get the best of both worlds. You're able to make some revenue. You're able to directly invest in energy, and you've got a direct pipe from the roof to the house, which means that you have a more efficient distributed system, which is better than centralized power plant-based systems.
Well, you've convinced me. Yes on 310. All right. So, Louie, do you have anything else there? You want to?
Yeah, well, I guess for the members that will actually get on the council this year.
Trash talk.
How would you convince? There's right now there's 6 council members that are against 310. There's 3 of them for. Is that correct?
Why don't we just do a show of hands? So who is no on
No,
310?
I'm not talking about the existing council members.
Okay.
Right. So I guess my question is for Courtney. How would you convince George and the other 2 to vote no against 310, or are they movable?
Right. I've tried to actually convince George. No one.
Let's get that mic up a little bit.
But I would say, from a business standpoint, we have spent a lot of money on this already. And as I'm a trial lawyer, and that's the phase we're in right now with XL. Whether you want to deal with XL or you want to take the keys and start your own municipal utility, why on earth would you throw away our leverage at this point? It makes no business sense at all.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you, Kevin, for having the guts to say something unpopular, and Macon for jumping in. It's nice to have some real discussion and not just 30-second answers. I apologize for interrupting what was getting good, but we have a tight schedule. We have to talk about tofu and plastic bags next. Okay, so next up we have Steve Fenberg. That's the order on the spreadsheet. New Era, Colorado.
All right, so I think I know most of you guys up there, but just for everybody that doesn't know New Era, we're a nonprofit that works to engage young people to engage young people in democracy across the state, get them more involved. And so we're very concerned with access to city government and access to be able to participate in the democratic process. So, and if possible, so the question is, I want everybody to sort of answer this in one sentence, essentially. But I'd love it if we can just sort of go down the line and give me your best shot. But the question is, what is the single most effective or interesting thing you would do to make city government more innovative and modern in how it interacts with its city residents?
So let's have someone who hasn't talked recently. Anyone? Jonathan.
In one sentence.
Can you repeat?
Sure.
The city interacts.
Essentially, what is one big idea you have to make city government more modern and innovative, and how it actually interacts with the citizenry of Boulder?
So
Fix the city's website.
Yeah. I'm voting for you now.
Well, I agree with Andrew, but I think it's the wrong question, Steve. The whole purpose of government, government works at a different speed than fashion and innovation and business. It's got to be on the cutting edge. I think our government is to deliver stability and to take the long view of things. And this means I think that you create a city where you can hold the innovations and the businesses that are doing things on the cutting edge, the artists, the writers, the intellectuals. But I don't think that's the job of government necessarily to be out there developing the cutting edge, the leading edge, and all of the things, all of the spheres where it operates.
Council people should only be able to use one sentence.
Okay, so let's keep it on mic. And anyone else on that? Only if you have a burning desire, because we have a lot to cover.
I'll be really quick.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I think we are doing well that we need to keep doing that is fairly innovative is that we do have a lot of citizen input. We have so many different citizen tech teams and working groups, and I think that that's something that we need to do even more of, especially if we are indeed able to start an electric municipal utility. I think that, we have so many smart young people in this community who have so many great ideas, and we can bring on some really cool programs that will continue to make us a leader in innovation and energy especially. So I really would like to see us continue to do that, which is something unique we do.
Well, let's touch on one. Were you going to follow up?
No.
Okay,
That's all right.
so one.
I just want to. I'm asking more about how the government interacts with people, not like how the government invents things. You know what I mean? Like how do you break down barriers between citizens and government, other than just simply an open hearing every other week for an hour?
So Sam Asefa led the Civic Center project, and I thought that was just phenomenally done. He got 5,000 different inputs and ideas into the Civic Center project, and he did it by holding charrettes and having design contests. He went out into the community with the group of staff and had kids come in and draw what they thought on pieces of paper. And it really, really engaged the community and produced a vision that I think has a lot of buy-in. So I think outreach is something the city is quite capable of, and I have that as a model for how we can do sub-community planning, because I think South Boulder and East Boulder need a sub-community plan. And that process was really dynamic. I hadn't seen anything like it, so that would be one idea.
One question in line with this is there any easy way, and if there is, I apologize, I don't know, but maybe that's part of the problem, for your average citizen in Boulder to make a suggestion or a request or to share an idea with the city?
There's this thing called the internet.
Right, but not
email.
email. Like, is there a forum where they can be upvoted?
Yeah, they could do live polling, and
I've
they're
heard of
probably
the
moving
internet.
in that direction. But I would say that you should serve drinks and finger foods and bring artists along, because that's what worked in the North Boulder sub-community planning process.
Right. What worked for Bohemia will work for Boulder. So one thing I was thinking is I'm reading the Starbucks book right now, of all things, and there's a thing called My Starbuck Idea, because they get so much complaint and so many ideas, and they get something like 7,000 requests a day. And then, like Reddit, if you know Reddit, they're upvoted by the fellow users and citizens of Boulder. It would certainly be a traffic win if you want attention in Boulder, and it would be a great way to upvote. You could say we need a bike lane separation on this street. That gets 9,000 votes. The other one gets 20 votes. That would tell you something.
There was a little program like that. I'm sorry, John, I jumped on in front of you. That the city was looking, the sustainability director, Jonathan Cohen, and that department was looking at having prize money available for people in the community who came up with really innovative ideas around energy. And that was kind of a little bit of a part of what I was talking about. But I think those sort of things like you're describing, and maybe having a little prize money at the end for whoever comes up with the best ideas would be pretty neat.
So quick show of hands, would everyone here feel like Steve's thing is a priority and you'd work on something along those lines, whatever that idea is? And if you don't raise your hand, we won't endorse you. Okay.
Go ahead, John. No, go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
Can I'd like to just respond to that.
Please.
Speaking as someone who's been carrying propaganda and working as a gopher in lots of civic campaigns in the past, I think the city is extremely responsive to the wishes of its citizens. We can go back to issues like the establishment of the Blue Line and the being the first city to have be willing to tax itself to acquire open space. Those were all done in response to citizen initiatives,
Yeah.
and I think that there has been it's a long tradition in Boulder.
But the modern generation just wants to sit around in our pajamas, and we don't actually want to do anything. We just want to click on our computer. So what could you do for that?
Audience watching City Hall, the ability to kill a microphone.
Right.
I was thinking a video game of the open space.
Right. An open space video game. You could imagine mountain biking on mountains on open space. Okay. So next up, of course it goes dead. Next up, we have Bob Morehouse of Vermilion Design. Bob Morehouse. Feel free to make noise. Bob Morehouse!
Thank you. So those of you who stay up past midnight probably know the City Council recently passed an agreement of what they're calling a climate commitment to decarbonize our future, ideally to go either carbon neutral or at least 80% by 2050. So my question is, take that to a personal level. What commitment have you made in your own personal life, your family life, to decarbonize your future? I hate to just pick out people. We could just start with Andrew, and if other people want to
Well,
pick
that's
that
one
up.
question maybe everyone could answer briefly, if we can keep it moving.
I think walking.
Get the mic up there.
Walking or biking, and you know the thing about that is it's easy for us to do who live in town, and that's part of the problem. I mean, to me, while it's easy for people that are well off, which we all are, who live in town, to do these kinds of things. I think what we need to be thinking about too is how do we get people who can't walk to work and whatnot and that goes to all our multiple other issues to really hit home.
So is that answering your question there? How is he in his life? Okay.
When you know better, you do better. We've cut our electricity consumption to a sixth of what it was 20 years ago. And we just remodeled an 1874 house, 1,700 square feet. It's now LEED Platinum.
That's bold for Bacon to talk about his remodeling in Boulder. All right, Micah.
So I've been working on climate change for 16 plus years. That's my life's work in the nonprofit field, is working on climate change to educate people and promote progressive energy policy. So I do try and practice what I preach as much as I can, and my goal is to be carbon negative. And so right now we've been producing for the last 3 years more electricity with the solar panels on our roof than we consume, and we've been shutting down all of our natural gas. Now our heat is by electric little space heaters that are powered off the solar. And as I said at the beginning, our car is now, we've put our down payment down so that our Prius can be made a plug-in, and it's a super juiced up sort of plug-in that doesn't really ever need gas unless you drive more than like 100 miles. So we're trying our very best, especially with food too. We've brought most of our food, we're trying to get as much of our food production growing at home and CSAs and all that too, because food production, food and products are 42% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So we've really got to think of outside the box beyond transportation and our homes as well to the products and the food we use.
Thank you. So I'm an environmentalist. This is really exciting for me to hear. We have 3 minutes left. So if people can move it along, that would be great.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Worked downtown for 24 years without a parking space. So I bicycled to work, re-insulated our house, fight with my wife all the time about where we sit with the thermostat issue.
Tell her we're on your side.
Yeah, I will.
All right.
And no new car since 1990, which means we don't have the footprint that went into making a new car and all the environmental aspects
Nice.
of that.
Thank you, John. We now have 2 minutes. Mary.
I don't fly anymore. I quit flying 5 years ago.
Wow. An extra clap for the quick answer. Thank you. Jonathan.
I bike to work over summer, some part of fall, much of spring. When I have meetings in Denver, I bus. Try to keep the house cold and try to instill those same values in kids.
I'm glad to know a lot of other people are shivering in the winter in Boulder, along with me.
Solar on the house and biking. Moved to town. That was another thing that was done consciously. I used to live in the hills and wanted to be closer to where I worked and everything. But probably the most important thing is run a company that's doing a clean energy technology development for solar and energy efficiency.
I try to workshop and play closer to where I sleep. 24 inches, well, probably 36 inches of insulation in the roof. After the energy audit, solar panels, Prius. But what really matters in Boulder's carbon footprint are all the people coming in every day, and we need to fix our neighborhoods, make them more delightful, that people will move back.
Kevin?
As I previously mentioned, I don't have a car, haven't driven in over a year, and live in an efficiency apartment. But the interesting fact would be that I'm currently wearing 8 items of clothing, which is out of 250 total items that I have. I take an inventory every year to make sure that I'm not buying too much crap.
Nice. Love it. So, we have a couple minutes. We have fully entered an episode of Portlandia at this point. And John Taylor to bring us back and remind us about money. Do you mind going over on this one?
No.
Otherwise, I'll be standing in front of you.
I don't mind. I'm going to the left side.
John Taylor.
John Taylor, Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to
Chamber of
ask you,
Commerce.
I'm going to channel, I am a business innovator in town, entrepreneur. My employees have challenges coming to work. My driving, commuting into town, they can't find affordable housing. I can't find low-cost office space and that meets my needs. Which one of you, raise of hands, should I be voting for? Okay, now why?
I almost want to hear from the people who are honest enough not to raise their hands all the way. Go for it. Speed round.
So I've proposed that we extend the height limit in East Boulder to 165 feet. That's the equivalent of Willville. Willville does not impact most people in their daily
Okay, we're
lives,
out of
and this
time.
would be
Thank you
important.
so much. Anyone else?
We need to ask the in-commuters what they would move to if we built it, and then we need to put it in the neighborhoods that need centers so people can walk to get most of the things they need.
Nice.
More stuff like the transit village in areas where there's commercial that's not being heavily used, and sensible infill development in existing neighborhoods.
Thank you, Sam.
More focus on eco passes to the extent that we don't really have enough basic space to solve problems around housing and more mixed-use type of development around 55th Street and places like that that could provide some housing and some more office space.
If you're passionate about social issues, check out the videos we did earlier with most of the candidates here. Jonathan's strong on those. Thank you, Mary.
Prioritize area plans for 28th Street and 30th Street corridors and 55th in Arapahoe.
Thank you.
Improve public transit system and bicycle system and have community-wide eco passes, including employees working in Boulder but living outside of Boulder.
Wonderful.
Ditto community-wide eco-passes for those who live and work in Boulder, and also more mixed-use neighborhoods instead of big box stores like Walmart's.
What about those who live outside of Boulder, you were suggesting? EcoPass, so would you
Yeah,
do the
for
same?
those who live and work in Boulder.
But what if they live outside of Boulder? Were you suggesting that? No.
Yeah,
I'm
if
looking
they-
at John, but because
Oh,
that
I'm
was,
sorry.
were you saying for people
Yes,
who live
I
outside?
was saying for people who work in Boulder but live outside of Boulder.
Right, so Micah, would you do the same thing there for people who live outside of Boulder?
Yeah, I was saying community-wide eco-passes for those who live in Boulder and work in Boulder.
But if they live outside of Boulder?
Yeah, if they live outside of Boulder as well, but commute
Okay.
in,
Great, because that seems to be a big part of the issue, like that Fenno years ago was strong on.
and the density and
Right.
transportation corridor.
Possibly the chamber should hire some more people who actually live in Boulder.
All right.
But we need better transit.
Well, they hired John, so. All right, Andrew.
I agree. We need better transit. I moved here from Washington, D.C. They build a transit line. People would build around, or people would develop around the transit line, and the market works that way. So if we were to improve our transit, our strip malls would start to disappear. Developers would start to build that housing in the infill areas. Thanks.
Okay, so that was our version of a speed round. That was pretty good. Thank you all. Now we have my good friend Ryan Van Duzer with a very important question.
Okay, this will be really fast because we're
Thank
in
you.
the fast round. Affordable housing, I love it. I live in it. A lot of my friends do. Steve Fenberg does as well. How can we make sure this program thrives into the future so it's not just ultra-rich people taking over Boulder?
So let's just have one or two people if you have an interesting and different
Maybe let's
point
go
of
with
view.
Kevin. He's a young man.
Thank you.
My age, living in Boulder, and Andrew and Sam.
Thank you.
So, one, increased supply. I think that we need to accommodate more citizens. But two, to fix the affordable housing program, I think that it should be something that's tied to a person, not a place. And there's a lot of complaints that people live too close to affordable housing because it's concentrated in certain areas. If we just gave the money to the person through a subsidy, that would do two things. One, they could live where they liked, and two, they would be able to graduate slowly out of the program so that they wouldn't have this cliff where, you know, once you get too much income, you have to just quit and leave Boulder.
Okay, thank you.
But there's not enough affordable housing. The market's not working. It's not going to work. Every house you build is going to be expensive. we're going to have to take drastic measures. I think we have to get involved at the state level, and we're going to need some rent control in this town.
Is there anything to be done just to jump in and slow everything up? Is that okay if we ask one more in-depth thing here? 2 people have to nod for it to be okay.
Fine.
Jesus. Everyone fell asleep.
Crowd's turning.
When I was shopping for my first home, I grew up here and wanted to live here and be able to bicycle and live downtown and all that. House after house that I looked at that was not really even affordable was bought by a house flipper and then turned from a $300,000 or $400,000 house, which is as cheap as you can find in Boulder, into an $800,000 or $900,000 house. So would you do anything about that, or is there anything to be done about that?
I think it's very hard to do, and part of that $800,000 remodel is making it more efficient. And that's one of the things we're trying to do. Tried to do at the planning board was to make sure when houses were remodeled that they were more energy efficient.
Right, but most of those houses are like 5,000 square feet, where before they were, flipped, they were 1,000, 1,200 square feet. I bid on a cottage that was like 350,000. It was turned into a 5,000 square foot. That's hardly efficient.
We pushed as far as we could with the compatible development, I think, at the time. It may be that we can push further at a later date, but that was a pretty bloody battle at that time.
Okay.
So then I think one thing that's really important is keep the current affordable housing programs going the way they are. So whenever a housing development is built, you have to make 20% of it affordable. And a lot of times people pay cash in lieu now and put that 20% somewhere else. And I think that's something we need to look at. Should you be allowed to displace the, quote, poorer people when the whole intent is to have people mix it up, really, have economically diverse neighborhoods. So that's one thing, is keep that going and get to our 10% goal, and perhaps even accelerate it. So that's one way to do it. That's permanently affordable housing. But the other is to create infill. And so I walked today through the Whittier neighborhood showing it to somebody what I mean. And so you can pick neighborhoods where the neighborhoods want more density because the current homeowners can subdivide their lot. And so they see an economic benefit, but they put duplexes or triplexes in the places where they subdivide. It was a big deal in the 80s. And I think we should go look at where it was done in the 80s, learn the lessons from there, and look at if there's other nodes like in South Boulder or East Boulder where maybe the neighborhoods want to densify.
And that's what it sounds like when a politician answers specifically. Boom. That was awesome. We're out of time. I'm sorry. So next up, we have Bill Capsalis, who's an idol of mine and a mentor of many years with the Naturally Boulder natural products community, which is one of Boulder's great business communities here.
So, Macon, I'll push back a little bit. Government is not separate from the people and is not designed in such a way. So 8 years ago, City Manager Frank Bruno funded 3 economic vitality action groups. One of them was the Natural Organic Community, Aloha's community, which I'm a part of. We took that $5,000 he gave us, and 8 years later, we have a trade association with 465 members and 110 sponsoring companies. That's a public-private sponsorship partnership. What would you do? Not you, because you've already had your shot. What would one of you do, I don't care who answers, to support innovation in the natural and organic community in this town, which is one of the big things that we're known for nationally and internationally now in Boulder?
We haven't heard from Mary for a little while. Do you want to jump in? Only if you want to, sorry. You don't have to.
Well,
Micah?
I have to digest that, yeah.
If I can jump in, I've talked to several people in the natural food sector because of this is a huge passion of mine. And one thing that's come up repeatedly is that there's a need right now for some sort of a local food hub. So having a place where local organic, farms can bring their produce, where it can be stored and then be prepared for distribution. And also there are a lot of cottage industries who don't have food-grade kitchens right now, but who would be able to produce more products if there was a central hub that could also serve for the food-grade kitchen for canning and that sort of process. So I think that's a big need.
Okay, look to Fort Collins. Fort Collins has a public-private partnership building for innovation, kitchens, and all that kind of stuff. Already there.
Part of the civic area plan is a year-round farmers market, and that's just a no-brainer. And I think we just need to keep doing what we're doing because more and more of our restaurants are converting to locally grown food, and I think we'll see more of it in the years to come.
Does everyone here, just quick show of hands, feel like a year-round farmers market is a good idea? It's okay if you don't, just let us know. I know farmers who don't think it's a good idea, so I just wanted to know. So we are over time, but we had one gentleman who explained to me that he is a VIP question asker and would like to ask a question, and it's a little out of left field in terms of what I had prepared, so I welcomed it because I love that. It adds a little diversity to the questions. Mr. Carl Tinsman, right here, thank you for waiting.
Thank you very much. I'm a community elder, not really a VIP questioner from North Boulder, and I'm privileged to ask the second international question tonight. Boulder has a long and proud history of being a sister city in Mexico, in Tibet, in Cuba, in Tajikistan. And recently, there was a sister city proposal for Boulder to match with the city of Nablus in Palestine, in the West Bank. It was voted down by the City Council last June. My question to all of you who are running for the City Council is, when it comes up again, how will you vote and why?
Can I answer this one since I didn't get to answer the last time?
I think we'll have everyone, so we can start with you, Mary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would vote yes on it, and here's why. Because when I was a little girl, I grew up Catholic, and there were Protestant neighbors 2 doors down. My mother told us that we shouldn't play with the Protestant kids, but being kids, we did anyway. And after a while, our parents became friends, and that's what that's about.
So everyone else, maybe we could just go from John down and then the other direction.
I would vote yes, and the reason is that I'm a water engineer. I've worked a lot in the Middle East, among other places, and I understand how important it is for people to talk with each other wherever possible.
I'm going to have to think about this one some more, to be perfectly honest with you, because my concern about this would be that potentially it's such a divisive situation. I'm concerned we might alienate some people in our own communities. I really would need to talk to more people about their feelings on it before I
Thank
feel
you. That's an
comfortable
honest answer. So Macon.
I did vote yes, yes, and I'd vote yes again, and I explained at length at the City Council meeting the reasons for that. But fundamentally, it's because I think it's really important that people have an I-thou relationship across cultural divides, and that this be cultivated.
I have no problem with having a sister city anywhere in the world or outside. It can be Vulcan for all I care. But I don't know enough about the specifics of that specific proposal. I had heard, and I don't know whether it's true or not, that there were some issues about distinguishing factors between this proposal and other sister city proposals. But I don't know whether that's the case or not. But I certainly have nothing against being a sister city with any other country.
Having heard on the Human Relations Commission some precursor proposals to try to provide cultural awareness raising experiences in Boulder. I think I could get to a place where I would vote yes, but it would require a lot of outreach, just because the experience is so very divisive, and I would want for this to be a warming experience in Boulder and a recognition, as opposed to one that would pit very deep-seated feelings against goodwill.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
So I share some concerns around the Nablus Sister City proposal. I would need to learn more about it before I would want to say that I would vote for it. Mainly because of the divisiveness in the community. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment that people getting to know each other breaks down barriers, and I'm in favor of that. And I think what's going on in the West Bank and settlements there is terrible, but I also don't want to create division in our own community. So it would have to be handled in an extremely sensitive manner, and I'd need to learn more about it.
I didn't think it was this hard. I think you say to Nablus, can you find an Israeli city to be a sister city to you? And we'll be sister cities with both of them. And if they can't find them, we will.
Brilliant. So as Waylon said, I'm the libertarian outcast here. That makes me probably the most vehement critic of American foreign policy on the stage here. But also, I don't believe that it's the role of City Council to be talking about foreign policy and the controversy that comes with it, so I'd vote no.
Okay, so thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the answers. I think we've covered everything. So now we're going to do something very silly, but it's late, so a little silliness is in order. When this is over and you're done talking, something you'd like to share with the whole class. So there's literature in the back. Please stick around and meet the candidates. We're not able to get into a ton of depth, but I think most of the candidates are willing to stick around for a few minutes. Some will probably have to leave.
Is there beer?
There is beer. Yeah, exactly. I thought you were going to say, I have to get home to my children. Is there beer? So very quickly, let's have a round of applause, but instead of for everybody. Wait. Oh, that was easy. All right. That was awesome. All right, we're done. No, let's have a round of applause after, while I go like this. So applaud as loudly as you like when I'm around someone who you really approved of their frank, honest answers, whether you disagree with them intelligently or not, if you felt like they were forthright and you would like to talk with them further. Andrew Shoemaker. Kevin O'Taylor. Ed Byrne. Macon Cole. Micah Parkin. Sam Weaver. Jonathan Diggs. Is it Diggs? Sorry. Jonathan Diggs. Mary Young. And John Bristol. So if you enjoyed that little round of applause, it was my idea. If you didn't, it was Meg's idea. Are we done with all business? So thank you so much for coming out. Please share the videos with friends if they need help deciding. That's sort of the point of tonight. Engage with your city. That's what makes it awesome. And thank you to my neighbors for coming out. That means a lot. That's awesome. All right, thank you so much, City Councilor candidates.
Thank you.